Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica. On this week's episode, we're taking a look at Dracula the Undead, released in 1991 on the Atari Jaguar. Before we get too far in, just click down below, hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, definitely helps us out. This is a very interesting game because I, again, had never heard of it, just like Master of Darkness, and it loosely follows the novel by Bram Stoker, and this is actually Bram Stoker right here giving you a little bit of an introduction to the story of the game. Basically how it works is it's a point-and-click adventure game where you play as Jonathan Harker, and you were in Dracula's castle, and you were trying to escape. Basically, it mirrors the idea of the book and the movie very closely. I was actually shocked to find out this was on the Atari Jaguar because it's a system that I don't have a lot of experience with. I knew it was also like one of those also-ran consoles compared to the Game Boy or even the Game Gear where it existed. I knew of it back in the day, but I never actually seen one. I am emulating this, and it's the first time on the channel ever I am going to emulate a game because I have no way of getting video out of a Lynx for this game. So as opposed to putting the Lynx on a tripod and trying to shoot it into the camera, we are kind of looking at emulation, but I don't do it that often, but I had no choice on this one. But basically how it works is you have these two menus. On the left, you have examine, get, climb, turn, look, talk to, kind of your action items. And on the right, you have the different interactable objects. And this is kind of similar to something like, LucasArts adventure game, kind of Sam & Max style, where you have different actions you can take on different items. It's a little bit harder to control, obviously, because the Lynx doesn't have a mouse input, so you are using the D-pad and different buttons to actually interact with the game, so that can be slightly difficult, but it gets pretty easy pretty quickly. But what I absolutely love about this game is the overall visual aesthetic. It has that sepia tone to it, utilizing the limited color palette of the Lynx to an incredible effect. All the different scenes are really well designed. They've got great depth to them. There's a lot of shading and shadow that really give you an idea of the overall lighting condition of Dracula's castle. And later on, you're going to get a lamp that actually interacts with the environment around it in a certain way that I think is super impressive for the Lynx and for this game in general. So the story behind the development is that the developers actually had a much longer game in mind, but it was cut down because Atari used to love screwing over their developers on the Jaguar and the Lynx, not letting them have enough money or enough space on the actual cartridge to finish their design. But what is here is incredible. It is a difficult game, I'm not going to lie, because you can get yourself into unwinnable situations. At the end of this playthrough, I do exactly that. I cannot continue. It only takes about an hour if you know exactly what you're doing, or if you're using a walkthrough to play the entire game, because there is no save function, there is no password function. So it's designed to be a single sitting experience, which is really fun. And there is Dracula over in the corner. He's a pretty good looking Dracula. You can definitely tell he's got a cape. He's got some black hair, and you can kind of see his eyes there. Obviously the Lynx had a very limited resolution as far as the screen was concerned, but even blown up here with emulation, it really holds up super well. So the ultimate goal is you're trying to escape Dracula's castle, and you have to search different rooms and different areas of the castle that are, at the beginning, inaccessible to you. And there, Dracula gets a lot older looking. I guess his hair isn't black. It's a decent looking Dracula, though. You get all those facial animations and everything, and you're able to interact with them just by asking simple questions. So you do get a little bit more backstory, and I think it's interesting that Dracula, as a primary antagonist, you're actually able to interact with him to start, which is super fun. It's something you don't get to do in a lot of the other games, like Castlevania. Dracula just exists at the very last 2 minutes of the game, where here, Dracula is a character that you interact with on the regular. But what I'll let you do is I'll let you watch a little bit more of the gameplay and just kind of the exploring around here. Once you get to certain milestones in the game, the author comes back and tells you a little bit more of the story that you're interacting with, and then from there you're able to continue on about the game. It drops you little hints here and there of what you might want to do using your notebook to make notes of the conversation, because you will need to remember things later in the game, and if you don't make notes in your notebook, technically your character doesn't remember them, and you can put yourself into a complete situation where you can't do anything. I know I said I was going to let you watch a little bit more gameplay, but I do need to mention how much of this I cut out. This is the only annoying part of the game. You see Dracula swoop down from his window, and you need to get over there as a character so you can search his room. The issue is there's an invisible map that you need to traverse from your room's window over to Dracula's, and it takes forever. You can't die, you can't fall, but you're literally trying to make a mental map of the areas in which you can move. If you actually play this game, don't use a walkthrough except for this moment in time. Use that walkthrough so you can actually get across to Dracula's window without spending 30 minutes like I did. I have so much capture of this particular area that was useless. But go ahead, watch a little bit more, and I'll come back and talk a little bit more about the game. And we finally made it across that window gulf. And let me tell you, in real time, that took much longer than it seemed on screen. I left a little bit there so you guys could see exactly what I was dealing with and all those dead ends, but it was a much greater experience than I'm kind of letting on. And that is the only part of the game that I think is not great, because otherwise, this is an amazing experience. And this is another game that I had never heard of before. And that's kind of a trend so far in this season, is that some of the games that are really well known, I've enjoyed a bit, and some of the games I've never heard of have actually been incredible. And here's that little instance where I talk about the lantern, where there's actual real-time lighting in the game. Now, obviously, it's definitely a trick. It's not actually real-time lighting, but this lamp does actually affect the environment around it. And for something like the Lynx in 1991, that's a really incredible effect to have in your game, and it just goes a little bit further to kind of selling the overall experience of Dracula's castle. And even this room here, there's only just a couple puzzles you need to complete. You just need to find some objects, but how the light comes down the stairs, how the lamp interacts with everything, how there's shadow in the corner near that door, which is not a coffin, it's actually a door, kind of looks like a coffin. I'm super impressed with what they were able to do artistically with this game, especially the fact that they're only using, 3 or 4 colors to actually draw the main image. There's so much depth, there's so much detail, there's so much shading. It really goes to actually inform you of the overall world of this game. And now that we're in the catacombs, everything is so dark and you just get that little bit of shadow on the pillars. It just looks incredible. So just to experience the visual of this game alone, I 100% recommend it. But as far as the puzzles are concerned, they make really good logical sense. I know some adventure games, some of the solutions can just be so abstract that you're wondering who thought of them and if it was kind of an in-joke to see exactly what you would try to do. And now just watch this very carefully. Look at that window on the right next to mine. There is a lock on that window, and it is locked from the outside. Now, when you're walking across, you can break it. And I forgot to break it, and that will become important very soon. But I'll just leave it at that, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But now that we have the crowbar that we found down in the catacombs, we're able to unlock this side door right here, and we're going to get a little bit more story of the game. And it does really a good job informing you of exactly what the storyline is, because not everyone's actually read the novel of Dracula. I think I read it in high school and I was amused by it and I thought it was really good, but obviously the actual novel of Dracula has been surpassed by so much different media that honestly some people that play this game may have never actually read the original book or know the original lore of Dracula. So all the story elements that you get are great. I do love all these animations of the harpies coming up. They're all really well drawn. The facial features are great. It's just, I didn't know that Lynx could actually pull off this type of game. And that I think is the most surprising of anything, is that the Lynx was able to do this, make everything look great, and just sort of, it beats the Game Boy so handily that I'm really surprised that Atari wasn't able to get more market share on this console. And the thing is, it was intended to come out on the Atari Jaguar CD in 1994 as kind of a remastered, longer version with improved graphics. Unfortunately, that never happened because the Atari Jaguar and the CD add-on was a complete failure, so we didn't get that, but this is still a great example of games involving Dracula on systems that you may have never played or may have never heard of. And here, we have gotten the game in an unwinnable state. We forgot to break the lock on the outside of the window, so we're locked in this room. We have no key that lets you out, and we can't get out the window. We're at a reset stage. But thanks so much for watching. We'll be back on Friday with another episode in our Technicality series. I'm back on Tuesday with another game featuring Dracula. Thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, have a great week. Bye-bye.